The Keynesian cross shows the relationship between planned expenditure and actual GDP. Planned expenditure is also known as aggregate expenditure. We denote it as AE. The equilibrium is where both the planned expenditure and the actual GDP meets. On the graph, you can see that the horizontal side shows GDP and the vertical line, the vertical side of the graph, the y-axis shows planned expenditure. We've got two curves here. This curve, the 45-degree line, it's also called the income expenditure curve. And here we've got E is equal to C plus I plus G. This is the curve for GDP, where C stands for consumption. Consumption we have as Y minus T, which is income minus taxation. For investment, we've got the investment is determined by the interest rate, which is an exogenous factor. It is not determined in this graph, in this model. And government spending is also here. We do not have net exports because we're talking about a closed economy. We are in equilibrium when both these curves intersect, in which in this case is over here. At this point, our actual GDP and our planned expenditure are equal. The IE line, which is the income expenditure line over here, this 45-degree line, it is a reference line dividing the graph equally for actual GDP and for planned expenditure. Above the 45-degree line, we have expenditure, which is greater than income, which is greater than the GDP. In this area above the 45-degree line, firms increase their production to meet expectations. As there's more expenditure, there's more demand in the economy, while there's not enough production. Below this line, below this 45-degree line, the expenditure is less than the income, which is E less than Y. In this case, firms cut production due to lack of demand. The equilibrium is over here. This area A shows this case, the first case that we talked about, where the expenditure is greater than the income. So firms will increase production and will earn more profit because there's more demand in the economy. Whereas in section B, this area over here, above the 45-degree line, the firms will have to cut production because there's no demand and the GDP is greater than that. So firms will have to cut production. Then we have the multiplier effect in this model, which shows that a change in autonomous spending, which is government spending or investment, leads to multiplied impact on the national income, which means that a little change in the spending through government spending or investment, there's a multiplied effect on the national income. The formula we have for multiplier is 1 by 1 minus MPC, marginal propensity to consume. It is calculated like through this. It also shows how the initial change in spending leads to a larger overall change in GDP. For example, government spending increases by $100 billion. This money is received by households and businesses, increasing income. Then the households spend a portion of this additional income based on their marginal propensity to consume. Their spending generates income for others, from which they spend a portion of. So like this, the process repeats, creating a chain of reaction. Spending and income increases, and then therefore GDP increases. The size of the multiplier depends on the MPC. Moreover, with the Keynesian cross, we have some extensions, some models that are based on the Keynesian cross, which starts with the ISLM model. As with the Keynesian cross, the curve that we generate from this, it adds to, and then it leads to the IS curve, which represents the goods and services market. And then we combine that with the LM curve, and that gives us the ISLM model. And then through the ISLM model, we come up with the aggregate supply and aggregate demand model. So these are based mostly on the Keynesian cross, and it's a very important and very significant model that plays an important role in both these models.